So I have a few ideas. One idea is making a game or a story of someone who isn't cis or male or certainly not heterosexual being taught to hate sexy women because we are seeing that women actually prefer these kinds of depictions and actually like to play as them despite saying that they don't like them as a self-report. It's a strange kind of study, but entirely to be expected by anyone with a little bit of sense. People like aesthetic things, but it's as if they're afraid to say they actually do like it because I don't know. The way I see it, women are so suppressed and taught to hate video games for many reasons. Just as people were taught to hate Dungeons and Dragons, just as they were taught to hate gory movies and everything else, because simply their parents didn't understand. Worse yet, where it's all each of one of those things had a fake ass moral excuse. The gore hounds for movies and horror and all the like. We still had that term used for some time. Probably sometimes even today, as a twisting around, as a reappropriation of the term. And now we have Gooner and other insults being twisted around, well, in other insults to try and keep people down, or to say that someone is sexist, or that someone doesn't like women. And yet, the best sellers are always those things that entice because, well, people know that fiction's subversive. They possibly want to at least, you know, do something. I don't know what it is. But they don't prefer the filtered. They want the orange with the bitter peel sometimes. Most people don't. They want their entertainment in its purest, dullest form. Kind of how we see the Native American as some sort of spiritual, noble savage and everything else like that, which is an incredibly insulting kind of racism, to the point where we, as white liberals, will tell them that they cannot call themselves Indian, to the point where exhibits, all of them, are just absolutely decimated because somebody in power said it must be. Now, if this was to return the artifacts back to the native individuals, I still, no, I'm sorry, indigenous individuals, because, well, that's more accurate and avoids the whole Native American thing. That's loaded. You know, the racist idea of a Native American versus cultural American. But I digress. If it was to return such artifacts to those people, then I have very little complaint. But in doing so, hundreds of square meters of floor space are just gone. Totally, utterly gone. There's no replicas, there's no nothing. Even the cigar store Indian, which was kind of not exactly the most respectful of how tobacco played a role in Native American society, well, people don't even remember they exist. Their whole language. It's odd because we're not talking about remembering that the cigar store Indians exist. We're not talking about remembering that. We're talking about remembering that native people exist, or the indigenous populations do. And that's problematic. It's as if the censorship, because some white person felt some surplus self-flagellation, saying, "Oh, we are nothing," and then we are nothing to God, so we're going to have this huge thing. We're going to make sure that to eradicate bigotry by eradicating symbols with. No, that's not how it works, sadly. The bigotry is still very much there, and perhaps even enticed by this more insidious fascism called political correctness. Dying out. Also, the white, rich liberal can feel good about themselves. All this media being sanitized and censored to have the white, rich liberal to feel superior instead of. Well, it's not just the white rich liberal. It's also the conservative. It's also the incredible anti LGBT individual to make sure to protect kids or whatever. It's the same kind of moral knee jerk impetus that said, oh, a movie is bloody and gory. You must have it gone. Or if something is immodest, it must be gone. Or if something is inconvenient. But some of these are the most greatest works of fiction. And even if something is truly offensive, it's still very much a part of culture. And we have to remember it, warts and all. There's better ways and better approaches. Sure, maybe things don't age well. Or maybe the age well excuse is a double bind. Who knows? But the spread and the absolute redefining of what is or is not harmful is simply not extent. It's simply not there. If that's sophistry, that is trying to make sure you got a racket and say, oh, we have to protect X people from harm, even when such X people, when they speak out against this ludicrous idea of how symbols and words can be harmful, and how, well, even if they are, that the sensorial alternative is more akin to totalitarianism. Well, I mean, they get dunked on. They get dunked on really hard. They get kicked in the teeth because everyone sees them as traitors, just like me and the some things that were seen as offensive by LGBT, offensive to LGBT individuals. And despite me saying that I'm LGBT, I do not support the censorship of these jokes because it is making us. It treats us like little porcelain dolls, and it's insulting to remove. Well, I'm not heard. I'm certainly not heard. Actually help such causes. It's cynical, but isn't that what it is in essence? That they truly believe they're doing good, but when we look at the stats and everything else, it only just gets worse. And these activists, maybe they know how to feed on that. It's a positive feedback loop that makes sure that they don't lose any sort of power. You have authenticity consultants, you have sensitivity consultants, whose very job it is, they have an incentive, a financially directed incentive to find more problems, to find them and find more of them so they can justify their existence. When really they are acting in a subjective manner, are making sure, like, you can't. I can understand consultancy for, like, historical accuracy, for cultural, like how things were back then, artifacts, the authenticity of how a battle regiment is supposed to look, military dress, and historics, because that can actually be proven and tossed against a wall, and there's rigor for it. The question of offense, as much as offense can be used to lubricate social progress and find issues within society, it can also be used as a weapon to harm people's ability to express themselves, our civil liberties, and also as a good extortion racket. The blame game is very, very alive and well, and Twitter just made that easier. No one seems to think, but I'm not sure if they ever thought in the first place. Not to mention that these ideas, well, they sound pretty good on paper. I mean, they have probably the best hearts, but with the hot, hot hell of good intentions. It's kind of kind of sad like that. It's just how that goes. That they have a job to try and speak on behalf of so many people that they didn't consent to being spoken on behalf of. And if one, even one person of that identity is against it, well, I think we should reconsider. But no one cares about those people. No one asks those people because it's politically inconvenient. Nobody acknowledges those people exist. And if they do exist, if they do show themselves and speak out, the wealth of hatred and the swelling of hatred is so much to the point where I was told that I was arguing against expression and representation of myself. It gets that bad. It's really sickening, and I just can't take it. And I don't have the organizational skills or even the finesse or even writing capability to even say it. I don't know what I'm doing. This has been said by other people, other places, but it's not going to be breaking out of the mainstream bubble because, you know, those who control everything, don't want it being heard. And no, 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 no. If you misconstrue my words to say, oh, it's the X people or Y people or anything else, no, 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 no. It's just elitism. It's people that just have, well, a monetary interest in this thing going, or possibly are just misled by good intentions, or many complexes of just people who think they're doing a good thing, but they're not. Just like that Rick and Morty episode with the word that, of course, would get me canceled, but no, that would be, the epithet for stupid. And how that was very bad. And I mean, they illustrated a good point that they think that word has power over people and everything else, and it really doesn't. It's certainly gauche to say, but then again, society decides that. They were totally okay. In fact, that word was supposed to be the euphemism for slow. And now we got that back into something. Jesus. Now we just use other words because it's just the euphemism escalator, and no one seems to do that. It's like, okay, but people are always going to be cruel. We can't stop that. The idea that we can is absolutely too idyllic, even for me. And it's an impossible task. In other words, I think we should reevaluate the approach. I think we should reevaluate our priorities because if we're going to be upset about words rather than the actual actions and the aggressions against people who are differently abled or have low IQ, then we're missing the mark. Because it's a good racket. Or even worse, society has been absolutely captured by such lies. It wouldn't be the first time. Would not be the first time. Just as the misinformed idea of stereotypes and the proposed and supposed harm of such things. Yeah, I mean, the entire idea of a stereotype was supposed to be a scientific literature and a scientific definition that says, oh, people make some assumptions about things. And they actually have things because the brain has to make those short circuits. It is easier to categorize and everything else because you cannot see the full entirety of a person, of every individual that you come across, which is unfortunate. I mean, it'd be nice if you could, but there's only so many. The brain is only so capable, and there's only so much time in the day. But that we actually do recognize that patterns and other things exist. Maybe falsely, maybe correctly, but there's nothing inherently wrong
with stereotyping. It's actually how we, see a vegetable as a vegetable, or how it might taste, or whatever. But it's just become so loaded and so and so misused, possibly intentionally, by people who want to either get ahead or they think they're doing a good thing, or both.
When that's harder to prove. And even then, they can be recontextualized. This omission, this censorship, out of sensitivity and all the like, only happened after certain events and people gripping with some sort of guilt that doesn't need to be there. It's religious in nature. It's like people being guilty about masturbation or porn or anything else. It's pretty gross. It's self shame. I know there's a point where some things are gauche. I know there's a point where some things are not socially acceptable, but when has that ever been a good metric? When has society ever been a good metric of progress, goodness, or anything else? Every single time it has to be dragged by its ears to something that is quote unquote better or maybe even worse. People just don't seem to think.
Well, correction there. Society has never been dragged to something that is worse. It seems to naturally go there. It seems that we naturally want people to rule over us because the world is rough and we want answers and we want them easy. That's why feudalism was so, successful, sadly, and so quote unquote stable. And even though it didn't really respect humanity or its, anything or its social mobility, in fact, the whole freedom gives us more anxiety. And yeah, because, well, freedom isn't cheap. You're not supposed to get it's not supposed to be a paradise. I mean, you know, it's as if eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, something, something, something. You know how that works. And if you don't, I don't know what to say. Yeah, you do now.
Because, well, they're busy. They're busy with work. They're busy with projects. They're busy with themselves. And they don't try to think outside of any of that. They can't. They can't afford to at this rate. Or they are just absolutely neurotic in how they worry about potential harm when the data say something very different. I can understand the feeling though. I can really understand that. But the data are showing something entirely different. And it's no different than the anti violence in video game and the anti porn ultra conservatives and the ultra left. They seem to be saying the same thing. That, or one co opted the language of the other, and now they're indistinguishable. It's really bad. We are seeing less diverse games before for it. Instead of a flourishing, instead of a critique,
We're not just seeing less diverse games, we're seeing less diverse media in general. We're seeing us be ashamed of what was fine so many years ago. And there's judgment, and just harsh ones at that, that don't really make any sense. That assume that the past was always terrible and now is always good, and then that repeats over and over again. So we're never any good ever. Might actually be mirroring what I'm saying, but Jesus, I mean, if you have to go fishing for problematic things, you're gonna see it. If you're a hammer, everything's a nail. No one can see any other context, and even if it is bad, I'm not sure the approach of censorship is going to be adequate. When you choose offense, you're sacrificing your agency to think differently about something. You're sacrificing your own responsibility and your own ability to think because you perceive something as a threat. It's almost reptilian. And I mean, reptilian in like the brain part, like as much as we should validate those feelings, as much as we should understand them, it doesn't mean that those feelings are valid or true. We should understand that maybe there's a difference, and that playing as, I don't know, if you're playing as someone who's a prisoner and hurts people, or somebody in Grand Theft Auto, as people usually play it, or as a criminal, that doesn't make you a criminal in real life. We know this. In fact, we have gamified violence in Dead by Daylight, and it's glorified with Freddy Krueger and everything else. And that's okay. But as soon as it turns around to something else, people just lose their brains. Because, well, we're not reasonable creatures. We kind of suck. We're really bad at that kind of consistent logical thinking of things. It's like a muscle that needs to be trained. And if society and educational systems don't train it, well, then we all become a little bit weaker. Or if we let our baser nature, it's like letting our baser natures get a hold of us, like addiction or anything else. It's And now we have an addiction to virtue that is in excess, or some false virtue. I am not good at articulating myself. I'm not good at organized thought, and that is entirely my doing. I did not flex myself or have a brain good enough to work like this. That is entirely my fault. But if I can see it, why can't other people? Just so obvious, you know? Especially with the recent ban on No Mercy being done by a radical right wing group that is harming women with their legislation, harming sex work and their workers, harming individual human liberties that are supposed to be enshrined by our system of law, all because of the concern of, oh, there's problems here. Of course there's problems, but there's got to be better ways to deal with it. Jeez. They're trying to swat a fly with rotting meat. And that's what the Woodhull Freedom Foundation is trying to point out. And at least that's how I interpret it. And the EFF knew the dangers of SESTA and FOSTA. And now we have media campaigns like we're either China, Australia, or England, or some other advertising body. Ever since that Grand Theft Auto 5 was able to be pulled from Target shelves because of social pressure, a very crazy international pressure, it seems like everyone's afraid that they try to focus on the global audience. So we have to water down things for the sensibilities of other countries and have it censored globally. We saw this in World of Warcraft, where since when more Chinese regulations came through, that globally it was censored everywhere. Where they didn't just replace things that were a gauche, they replaced whole images of women entirely. That says something else. And especially when these workplaces are trying to get more equity and safer environments for women to work, it's pretty cheap. And not to mention, they got rid of a whole bunch of jokes and a whole bunch of content that was not only there from the beginning, was harmless. And the modesty plate that they put on Jaina and the cards that they censor, it isn't. I do not understand how that could be ever considered forward thinking. Take Back the Night has become cover up. And it's already in the quote unquote practical stuff. It's magic. We're living in something that is fiction. It has no obligation to be quote unquote practical. It is every obligation to just be fun. And I think we're just overseeing and seeing sins where there aren't any. Because well, I mean, we are a very strange species. We're afraid of the dark. We have poorly evolved brains. We're afraid of the unknown. We bomb each other to bits over small differences. And I don't think this is any different. And I think we should conquer this. At least try to recognize it for the crap that it is and undo it. I really think that indicts Blizzard by a lot of things, especially their fandom. Jesus. I tried posting something in the newbie forum and everything else to actually have it known, and then somebody criticized, oh, it was a newbie that said this. Like, what? Okay, okay. I don't care how. I mean, I did play the game for a long time, but I had to delete my account with a blitz chunk stuff. Then I came back because I wanted to actually try and, have my voice heard. But apparently that's not enough, and none of it goes to a human. None of it. I'm sure some other famous streamer says it does, but it doesn't. It really doesn't.
We are seeing things become watered down. We are seeing things become restricted in some ways, open in some others, because goodness knows that some of this new stuff is great. Some of the pro LGBT stuff is well refreshing and possibly well overdue.
Yeah, goodness knows Steven Universe and Owl House have really good morals. We may criticize them. I may be the quote unquote anti woke shithead, but forgive my language. But I'm not heartless. I know the people of Boyfriend Dungeon that wanted to make their game quote unquote woke as possible. I mean, it really is. They have identities. They even have it so that you can have an option to turn off uh, conversations or calls from your parents because, well, that is actually upsetting to some people. Not a lot of people have good relationships. And still they got attacked by the quote unquote ultra woke because they weren't doing it enough. Or the Red Strings Clubs, then how those developers were attacked for quote unquote dead naming. Or how, goodness knows what else. Oh, yeah, Deadly Premonition 2, where Swery was criticized for saying a quote unquote dead name. I mean, I hate that dead name. It is a former name. Dead name is actually made to make panic, just like assault rifle or microaggression. It's very much a linguistic term of force, just like anyone who says, we're the good guy squad, or morality, or whatever, left or right. It's very much the word game. It's just gross. Really gross. Even if they're right, it still is a linguistic and very nasty kind of semantic a sleight of hand. It primes people. It makes sure that they can see problems in everything, and even if it isn't there. And isn't that a great and fecund field to try and extort a lot of money? Because it is. Just look at the earnings. Just look at the things and organizations around you that actually engage in this.
But we also had a lot of that stuff before, but people didn't notice because I guess it was too raunchy or edgy for them. Or like the Hayes Code got rid of the sissy boy. And even though it may be a negative trope, even that is still part of culture. At least one is acknowledged to exist at that point. And sometimes a joke is just a joke. And the idea that white people get to decide that Speedy Gonzalez is somehow offensive to Mexicans, even though they love him, it's just a very elitist kind of thing. And I can't be doing with that. I just can't. No one should.
The only kind of elitism we should like is if it's being intellectual, trying to think things through, be critical, and God forbid we admit when we're wrong and not try to play moral police. Sure, we can do that for ourselves, but not for anyone else that is posterior. We also gotta wipe our own butts before we criticize everyone else, myself included.
It's so obvious when you think about it. But why aren't people getting it? And when they do, they're very silent. And when you try to speak out, they insult, they kick you in the dirt, they try and find your family. And if you dare even defend some expression, something that does not cause harm, even if it is objectionable, you are considered a rapist. I really, really don't like that.
I wish I was exaggerating. They really do this. It is insanity. Just like how the anti-woke say, oh, if you're against the don't say gay bill, rightly so, because it was a censorship bill, somehow you're somehow a groomer or abuser of kids. That is just throwing away all sort of moral currency that you had. That is bull crap. The best thing you could do is at least concede the point that to let kids be kids, and that maybe there is questionable things. But the wording of the bill was to make sure that things couldn't be said. Very much in its early revisions, and even now with its implementation, going far beyond. The wording of the "Don't Say Gay" bill was so bad that even if you had a heterosexual had a wedding band, that would be seen as a symbol that could be banned. But it's not going to happen with that. It's not going to be consistent. You know why they're doing it. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. Parents should have some say in what their kids are doing and everything else, but not every parent's a saint. They don't get the some of them. They may have some rights, but they don't exactly have all of them. And with the book bans, with banning the graphic novelization of the Diary of Anne Frank because it included the other stuff with her, some of the stuff with naturally growing part of a young woman that some people find offensive for some reason. Even with my revulsion and kind of grossness and ickiness with that, you don't bloody censor it. And you don't bloody censor it because somebody has topless statues in the garden of France or whatever, France or Germany or whatever. Oh my God! It's like saying Michelangelo's David was problematic and should be considered obscene. And people actually said that. There were those school districts that were actually that kind of levels of absurd, trying to protect the kids. Like, I know. The damaging effects of uh, such obscene materials on kids is really well studied, and how it can poorly socialize them. Blah 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 blah. But Michelangelo's David and all those statues are not that. It's not that. It Holy God! Even when Mao's a a book because it was taken off school shelves because of a few curse words and showing some nudity because, well, it's the context of a concentration camp, my friend. It's pretty bad. Are you going to take out the Bible next? Have you seen what's in that thing? Have you seen Lot and his daughters? No, don't be doing that. Like, no. Don't be careful what you are asking for because you just might get it in spades.
It's so disheartening. It's demoralizing. And either it's planned, intentionally malicious, or just a standalone complex between many, many different people that have just led to something that is false. As soothing as the lie of censorship is, a lie will always be a lie, and harm is always done by such lies. Just like the lies of propriety. Now, propriety should actually happen, I'm sure, but who decides what is it? What if we had propriety actually, you know, how turn an LGBT couple into roommates instead of actually being called a couple? We see this all the time. We see this all the time with the
Yeah, we see that in the when that those two skeletons kissing, they were assumed to be heterosexual when really they were two males. And as sadly, archaeologists cannot assume because oh god, in fact, you can't even say that the ergot poisoning was definitive because we'd actually have to exhume the bodies and actually show it. But it pretty much is circumstantially there. Like, unfortunately, a historian has to be absolutely so careful that we do not impress modern sensibilities and everything else onto it, so we have no other choice that to say we don't know. Unfortunately, it kind of does the argument of they were just roommates or everything else. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, I can understand, and sadly, you can't. You have to be very careful with assumptions, and or like, you know, especially because remember, trying to find homosexuality through history and trying to say it also it may ignore the bigotry that we've also gone through through the past. Because goodness knows, Greece, the elite didn't think kindly on homosexuality. I think it was only the Hittites and it actually said, hey, a union could actually be respected even from a slave to someone else, and like you cannot harm them in that way. So they actually have something that resembles something of not only a marriage contract being observed, but also for slaves. And so that is reasonable to interpret that was also for the common people. Uh, like a slave should not be, like deprived of something. I forget exactly how it goes, but it's a little like it's almost like a disc made out of. I'm not sure if it's made out of bone or clay, but it almost looks like a vertebra, and it has writing on it, and that's like the only thing that we have that's like God honest truth that we actually said, hey, homosexual unions and we're stuff were respected by law.
Term Native American, at least Indian is a term for the stupidity of the white explorers. But no one seems to think that far. Why is that? Why? And I can't organize my thoughts well enough to make this into any sort of narrative. I have the proofs, I have the writing, and I do what little I can, but it's reaching no one. I guess the whole system was rigged from the start. What wasn't a problem, what isn't a problem, is made to be a problem. And when you can make problems, you can become the cure that searches for a disease.
Just like the Catholic Church, just like the Red Scare, just like Tipper Gore and all of that other bull hockey. Holy God. Ugh.
And you can make a lot of money on it. You can make a lot of money having a moral superior, giving people a sense of moral superiority. No one ever got broke in this country giving people a false sense of superiority. And it's kind of sad that that's how it's had to happen. And I can't take it.
It's human nature, buddy.
I really, really cannot take it. It makes me want to rip my own heart in two. That I'm not strong enough to do that either. I, some people are just cruel. Every single decade, there's always been something against the other. And it's always been some sort of moral panic.
Yeah, it's like the like as Zizek said, they want the chocolate without the fat, the cafe without the caffeine, and how they do not want the true other in multiculturalism. Uh, they want to make sure that we're separate, like everything else, almost counted by our identity. It's such a strange form of racism. It's weird. It's very weird if you really think about it like that. Or, step outside yourself and just look at it. That we're, I mean, you got to be thinking like you're an alien. Just take America backwards. Just take your own, so you can actually unplug from your own cultural assumptions in your own culture because you live in it. It's really ingrained in that stuff. And like, if you call it some other place and some other planet, then you can actually see the flaws. Kind of weird like that, you know? It's kind of how it happens.
Why do they happen in the first place? Why can't people realize what they are? Why is it that I can remember the satanic panic, the violence in video game panic, and all that, and people don't? I'm not special. I'm not smart. Not particularly. So why is it only me? Why do I feel so alone? And when I do feel people and understand that and I see other people that get it, I'm able to convince them in person. But in any other case, when it comes to talking with media companies or the actual publishers or developers, it's just nothing. It's just zilch, nada. They still think they're doing a good thing. They're unexamined in their lives. At least that's quite the stretch. But are we really that impressionable? I guess it really is that sort of projection. If they feel that they know themselves to be projectionable, like, uh, impressionable like that, maybe they think other people are. Or they're worried that other people are impressionable as they project themselves or what they think. Remember, projection doesn't have to be one's own character flaws put onto somebody else. Projection can be anything, any assumption, any fundamental attribution error put onto somebody else, either out of belittling or just maybe misplaced concern. And I think this is that misplaced concern. So, how do you tackle that? I don't want to say fight, but tackle. Because, well, it's certainly not working out. I don't want to fight because these people are people. Maybe this is just how the human brain works. And this is probably why it happens more often than not. And then there's a lot of very clever people that either take advantage of it or very passionate people that are just misguided.
Or worse yet, some of the most learned individuals can be really impressionable and take new ideas uncritically because, well, the establishment kind of says it. Or they're just kind of on a bleeding edge of some other revelation. Who knows? Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, these ideas. Sometimes these people are just misguided. Like, it got to the point where the son of an anthropologist and a psychiatrist, two people who should know better, were putting their son on on antipsychotics because they thought and were so afraid of the satanic panic. And if they saw yeah. Luckily, and it's weird because after that, we were talking about Vampire the Masquerade and everything else. You would probably wish back for the old D&D days where they actually had devils and all that with how this stuff in there. And even then, that franchise has absolutely abandoned itself. It's become an absolutely identity politics slog in the writing when the original was actually also really good. Santa Monica was just, I mean, you actually had the diversity. You actually had someone wearing a beret with Che. It's not and the misappropriation of how, these people are saying it's too political. It's always been political. No, it's because if it's a partisan politic. It's absolutely a dumb one. At least Disco Elysium actually does it right by actually just trying to get in the weeds of it. Biased or not, it's a fantastic game. Progressive in nature, but that doesn't matter because it's good. I mean, it actually, seriously seems to know what it's actually talking about instead of just going on the new thing. Goodness knows, edgy was a false sense of being counterculture when it was actually just corporate master planning through advertising dollars with a lot of very rich people and like everything else to make it as sanity and safe as possible. And we're doing the same thing now, just with different buzzwords.
So what do you do? What can anyone do except weep?
Well, I'm trying to do this, but I just want to say that the very people that had been in charge of this moral panic from the start, it was this is astroturfed. And they are abusive. I mean, 0 degree abusive. First degree abusers, they actually even talked. I mean, one of them, I actually have records of them, being a little bit close to, um, and repeatedly close to, you know, um, people that I can't really say it, but I'm not sure if YouTube or Twitch will say it, but the CSEM of children, um, the exploitation of children in that way, even as low as single digits. And even a second degree offender. But that is also a guilt by association kind of thing. What's really terrible is that some of these people have and are abusive. In fact, actually have records of being abusive publicly, even targeting other people, and the very people that are on their side always seem to be following and excusing and even not delegitimizing or even excusing or saying the abuse is good. Because if you're the wrong person, you deserve it. It's like the narcissist prayer. I mean, human nature sucks. Human nature just is a sad affair. So why did they win? Why did the worst win? Even though the evidence was all there, it was cherry picked. It was so terrible. We've got the satanic panic. Now we got the violence in video games, and we got uh, now fears, misogyny, and racism over nothing. As we judge other cultures, and now we somehow think covering up is somehow progressive. Take Back the Night has become cover up. It makes no sense. So I fully, fully think such individuals are, well, it kind of makes sense that they're abusive. It kind of makes sense that they're smug and they just go along with it without thinking. That, or they just have a lot of control over them, or such things got to the media first. And then culture writers were caught with their pants down. They circled the wagons. They went to the mattresses against their own because they were caught with their pants down, sometimes literally. Bloody Nathan Grayson couldn't keep it in there. Goodness knows the other person that he was with is also, is sexually abusive for herself or themselves. I don't know. I don't know if that person's alive and someone else isn't because of their lies. Simple as. Simple as. Well, if you stuck through it this long, I'm so sorry it's disorganized, but, well, that's just how my mind works for right now. I do not yet have the skills, despite being so ancient. I'm old, but still a child, and feel dead inside. I don't know how to even address the problem of organized thought or trying to have something, but on the other hand, I also want to be just very real. Just bear my heart out. I hope that isn't another form of manipulation. I just certainly hope. Wouldn't be the first time I would do something wrong. But I'm sure people will call me out on it. I hope. And if you made it this far, or even not very far at all, thank you for even just listening to my stupid little voice. and what little I have left. Hate me, indifferent to me, you at least clicked on the video and at least tuned in and listened. And that's something that's strange to me, to ever be heard or listened or even heeded. I don't understand the feeling of being heard or listened because it is such a strange thing to me. No one does. I feel alone and I don't know what I'm doing. But I hope I'm a good one. And I hope you're a good one too. Do the best you can. And don't take no bull crap. We don't have to tolerate bull crap. You should absolutely say it. And if you're wrong, admit you're wrong. And if not, stick to your guns. You have every right to do it. I mean, this is why I got a picture of Harlan Ellison, like one of his books. That man, I wonder if he were still alive today. He'd probably think me terrible, but we could at least try. He probably would be against this. I don't know. Then again, I'm thinking about sides instead of the larger humanity of it. I wanted to be treated by like human, but I guess the knife from the outward homophobic bigot was to my face, and this other stuff I hate so much more because it was a knife in my back. And it was for my own good that they said. When you have someone in a behavioral health unit look down at you and say that somehow the depictions of Jessica Rabbit or anything else or um, feminine depictions are somehow akin to blackface. Like, that is so off base. And it really did show exactly what's going on here. At least that person was honest. And that nurse don't work there no more. He didn't work very long after that because the other person knew better. That better nurse really was kind to me. Unfortunately, he's growing old, as am I. And there's no one left to remember the truth. If there is, they're certainly not saying it. And if they're saying it, they're certainly not going to be even given the time of day. Imagine all the social movements were all the people that were left behind. No, I don't think we can really call ourselves progress if we truly realize that what is happening now is happening because of the winners and those who are most powerful, not because of those who are right. That's totally independent. And people just go along with it, following the leader, even if it's off a cliff. Who is the fool that follows the fool that follows the fool that follows the fool? Son of a biscuit. I usually swear a lot more, but I'm trying to restrain myself. A lot more. But I don't know what else to do except bare my heart, have a few ideas, and just put them here for posterity for someone to just trip on. And I don't know if I can do anything about it myself. Implementation is always so much more than everything else. It's what it should be, but I don't have the emotional or mental capacity or psychological capacity to deal with this loss. These losses.